Hello, welcome to Quilt in Color. My name is Shalina. I made this hourglass quilt for the Project Quilting Challenge. The theme for the Project Quilting Challenge was hourglass, and I made this quilt from start to finish in 1 week. This quilt looks like it's made with 12 hourglass units, but that's not how I made this quilt. I actually made this quilt on point with squares rather than triangles. So let me show you how I made this quilt. I took this scrap of fabric that I had, cut out all of the 2.5-inch strips as I could get out of it. And I'll use this to make my red and white hourglass. Then I've cut some white strips and I'm going to sew them to each other now to make pairs. My plan is to combine the two pairs together like this, sew them into a tube, and then cut triangles out of them to make my hourglass units. We'll see how that works. I've gone ahead and sewn all of my red strips onto a white strip, as close as I could get because some of these strips are not straight. I used up all of the red fabric that I could. So now I'm going to press all of these to the dark side, and then I'm going to make a tube with 2 of these, and I'm going to save at least 1 for the corner triangles. I'm back. I've gone ahead and pressed all of the fabric into the dark side, and so what I'm going to do now, I wound up with 4 strips. So what I'm going to do now is to go ahead and cut the corner triangles first, just to make sure that's going to work the way I expect it to work. I'm going to try to balance up to close to this, but I'm going this way since there's room here that I can go farther. I need to line this up, so make sure that I can line this straight. There we go. It's close enough, I think. The rest of these will be easier to cut because I'll have the straight line to compare against. Go on this side since there's not a lot of room on the top. Okay, I'm back yet again. I've gone ahead and sewn the 2 strip sets to each other. And so now it's a tube. And now I'm going to go ahead and try to cut triangles out of this. This is not a technique that I came up with on my own. I actually saw this somewhere else a long time ago. And I've been planning on making this hourglass quilt for a long time. So I'm happy that I'm able to finally execute on this plan. I need to go a little bit farther than this, so let's try this line. Yeah, this is a little bit in the seam allowance, but I think that'll probably be fine. Let me move over a little bit. There we go. I think this will be fine there. So now I can go ahead and cut. And what that leaves me with is a strip set that looks like this. And this will keep me from having to sew triangles together. I can just sew the squares to each other on point. I'm going to make another one and see how it looks together. And if I hope that it does look like hourglass blocks at the end. And if it doesn't, I guess that'll be a different design that I'm making then. There we go. It's not getting me a lot of squares, but hopefully it'll be enough to make something out of this. 5, 6. So I've gone ahead and added the block, put the blocks on the design wall. You can see that the strips fit just right into the quilt, and then these triangle ones wind up being the edges in the corners, in the 4 corners. This one and that one and this one. There's 2 triangles here. I really like the way that this is turning out. If you compare the 2 methods, when you use the quarter square triangles to make your hourglasses, you have a straight set, so it makes it easy to see where all the blocks go. It's a good technique to be able to use that. If you use this technique with the strip sets, with the stripes, this one I think works better for quilts that are bigger, that have a lot of these inside squares. This one, for this particular quilt, I don't think it adds a lot of value. If you have a big quilt and a lot of stripes, then you can easily make these little stripes for all of the inside. Set the quilt on point and add these 4 corners, and then you only have a few triangles to work with to have to cut and sew together. But this method does leave bias edges on the outside, so you do have to be careful with sewing them. And it also, you still have to put it on point, which makes it a little bit difficult for some people. So either way, it's up to you which method works better for you. For me, this particular quilt, because there's not a lot of inside squares in here, I think it's probably about an equal balance. I think a bigger quilt, I would prefer this method, but with a smaller quilt, either way would have worked fine for me. Now, one thing about this quilt is I don't like the number of blocks. I think it would be better if there were more blocks. I just like the idea of having a lot of blocks where the eye can go around and see all the different designs that it forms. So what I've decided to do is to go ahead and make this quilt bigger. I don't have any more of the red fabric. I've used all of it in this quilt so far, because it started out with a scrap of fabric. But so I found some other red fabrics that I think will work. This one was used as a binding for another quilt that I think will work well. It won't give me too many triangles, but 1 or 2 triangles is all I need. And I also have this fabric that was used in another quilt. This fabric was used in a curtain that I made for my bathroom, so I can use this as well. I think that different reds kind of add a little fun flavor to the quilt. And this one also will not give me very many triangles, but I don't need very many. I can just at least fill in these spots so that my quilt can just be just a little bit bigger. But for now, I'm just going to use these 2 pieces and call it enough, because I do need to get this quilt finished by Sunday for the project quilting deadline. I post quilting videos on this channel. Please press the like button and the subscribe button so that you don't miss the next video. Okay, it's late at night, so hopefully the lighting is okay in this room. But what I've done is I've gone ahead and made the triangles with the other two fabrics that we're talking about. I do have enough to finish off the 2 blocks that were incomplete earlier. So I can make a 9-block setting. I don't think I can make more than 9 blocks, which I think will be okay. So what I'm going to do is just rearrange the pattern fabrics a little bit into the solid fabric so that it blends a little bit better. The extra block I can put onto the back so that it can be a label. I'll go ahead and sew up these triangles into squares. I can go ahead and make progress on this. I found some more polka dotted fabric, so I made some more blocks. I would rather have a rectangular quilt rather than a square quilt. So I've gone ahead and added these. I do have more fabric to make even more blocks, but I decided that in order to be able to finish this quilt on time, that this is a good number. And even though the dots are no longer properly spread out throughout the quilt, I think it still looks fine the way it is. I had already sewn a lot of the pieces together, a lot of the rows together, so I didn't want to have to unsew any of them. So I like the way it looks, and I can go ahead and finish up sewing the diagonal rows together and finish off this quilt. I've already chosen the backing fabric for this quilt. It is a red and white fabric. It looks a little pink because of because there's so much white in it, and there's a little bit of pink in it also, but I think it'll work just fine for the back of this quilt. So here it is, a finished quilt top. All of the points aren't exactly perfect, but I think they're close enough for me. I'm really happy to be able to make this quilt today. The first time that I saw this pattern, it was at a museum, and they would not allow me to take a picture of it. So I went out to my car, so I just sketched out the design. And because I had a lot of other quilts that I needed to make in the meantime, I didn't get a chance to actually make this quilt, but now I can. So I thought that I would be able to make a faster quilt by taking a Canva design and just printing it on fabric, but the printer didn't work correctly, so then I was kind of forced to make this quilt. But I'm happy that I was, because I like the way this turned out. So now I can go ahead and sandwich it and then get it quilted. And I quilted it with straight line quilting to accentuate the hourglass blocks so that you can't actually see that it was made on point with the squares. I chose some extra polka dotted fabric for the binding, and I sewed it to the back and flipped it over to the front so it's completely machine bound. And this was a nice fun quilt to make. I made this red and white hourglass quilt for the Project Quilting Challenge, which the theme for the Project Quilting Challenge was hourglass. I hope that you enjoyed watching me make this quilt and that you got some inspiration from it on how you can make your next hourglass quilt. I'll put a link on this page for the last Project Quilting Challenge quilt that I made so that you can check that out in case you missed that. Thank you for watching. I appreciate all of your support, and we'll see you in the next video.